Hi there. This is Adrienne with Team Gaia, and I'm so happy to be here with you today on this live/recorded broadcast. And what I'm hoping to do with you guys is explore week by week, as I can, if I can discipline myself, on what is really alive and really hot topic, and to also include friends, helpers, guests, and people who want to get interviewed because they're up to some really cool stuff. And so I'm just making the space available, and I'm really happy that you're here with us. So for me this week, the really, really hot topic was, because last week together I got to do that big unveil with you where I just laid out everything I could remember about my participation in the shift. And so this week, what came up almost immediately was, how do we know any of this is true? And especially in the light of all the shadow government manipulations. And so I thought, you know what, I bet a lot of people feel that, because if you're a truther, for instance, one week you're picking up this piece of truth from somebody, and then the next week you're finding out that that was actually controlled disinformation. It was actually a psyop. Yeah, Alex Jones being a good example. Like, Alex Jones is a gateway for a lot of people to start questioning the mainstream narrative. And it's great because he kind of comes off like a normal good old boy too. But then there's information out there that says, oh yeah, he's CIA, you know, they've actually just planted him there so that he can create a bit of a firewall for the truth movement, so that he'll distract them into here instead of not into there. But then when you go into the truth movement, you find so many different layers of people's understanding too, right? And they'll be vicious to each other. They'll be like, oh yeah, you know, there's those no planes people, you know, and the flat earth people, and the people who believe in the reptiles living inside of the earth. And like, I'm not saying any of that is wrong, but what I'm saying is that every day, every week, everything you think can get almost immediately disrupted by brand new information and brand new perspectives, like any moment of the day. This is what kept me from speaking out a lot sooner, because I wanted to make sure that everything I told you would be 100% true, 100% accurate, and also with like some really actionable, usable information, so that you could, you know, put it to use right now and really go take it home, you know. So after watching, when I was little and we would play jump rope, you'd watch the rope come at you, and you knew sooner or later you were just going to have to jump. But it was impossible to imagine how. So now that I've jumped, I'm going to keep on jumping. And here's a few best practices that I kind of set up, and I'm hoping that they'll help you. Ooh, it sounded like I just heard something on Facebook beep. So let me log out of Facebook so we don't keep getting those little dings. I have a guest with us today, and that was nice. I have a guest with us today, somebody who really felt like she was interested in talking on this topic, or, you know, witnessing and being witnessed. I think fast, but I'm really glad that we are, because you've got to stay with what's really, really hot. And if the idea that every time there's a leak, then there's a counter leak, and then you find out this wasn't true, and then you wonder if it was, and you know, who's an agent? You know, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange have both been put through this strainer of like, are they really buddies with the CIA? Were they put up to it? Or are they genuine whistleblowers? And so we're going to explore all of that the best that we can. What I do want to start off with a couple of housekeeping things, and that is that I have a wonderful friend here who found me last week. Her name is Kendra, and she felt excited to talk on this topic too. So we're going to explore what little we know. And so the second housekeeping is that when she speaks or when I speak, then our thumbnails come up, and this will happen to you if you're a guest too. And we don't really know. Kendra, can you see yourself now?
I don't think I can see myself, but I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Kendra. I'm from the Northeast, and I just wanted to share a little bit of my truth today with you all.
Cool. Thank you. So isn't that, it's kind of cool how when somebody speaks, they're like right in the center of the screen. And then after a moment of silence, then the other person can speak. It's pretty cool. We'll work with what we've got. It's a free tool, so I'm not going to complain too much. Yay. Thanks so much for saying hi. So some other basic housekeeping that I wanted to do is that when we're talking truth topics, it's really important to me, and I'm just letting you guys know as an audience, and tell me if you think this works for you. It's important to me that I cite my sources the very best I can, and I know that Kendra understands this too. In other words, if you've experienced something and it was in the 3D, try to tell the experience the best that you can. If you experienced something and it was on the inner realms, make sure you say that. You know, say, I had this vision. For instance, I had this vision after going to bed and eating chocolate cake before I went to bed, but I still picked up this information and I still think it's accurate, you know, stuff like that. So it's really important, because of what I'm trying to do here is create a really safe space for us to talk about what we do know to the extent that we're comfortable. And when there's stuff that we don't know, or we're conjecturing, or we're guessing, or we're connecting dots, just state that. And I feel that when we do that, we're going to create a safety container, that nobody is wrong, everybody's got valid information, and nobody around here is an authority either. Because I feel like the need to be an authority or listen to authorities actually really detracts. You know, we've got these guys who are putting out some serious heavy truth information, like Corey Good, or David, oh gosh, oh come on, I'm
David
sorry.
Wilcox, right?
Yes, David Wilcox. And
Right.
obviously it started with David Icke. And so here's what I feel about I wanted to just put this out on the table really quick. Here's my take, very, very briefly, about how the whole MK Ultra / shadow government / personal development thing goes together. And it's just, it drives me nuts when people will like talk about transgenders and go, you know, or a costume that somebody wore in a concert and go, see, this is evidence of the transhumanist agenda, and they're trying to make everybody gay. And I'm like, you know, I get what you're saying, but you know, you connected a whole shitload of dots right there, and you didn't really show where that came from. And so I really have the utmost respect for anyone who's watching. And we all have a right to take back our minds, take back our frequencies, and not be played by different teams, and just stand as independent witnesses with our own sets of experiences. And that's why I created this forum, is because just because you're not fitting into what the mainstream's understandings of what's going on, and oh my God, there's still people who think that all of that is bunk, and they can back it up with some 3D stuff. So, I mean, if we're going to talk about woo-woo stuff and not try and like create a cult or something, we have to make sure that we always cite our sources on our, you know, how we got these understandings. And that way, I feel like we'll all really stay a lot safer too. I'm sure many people have experienced that once they started talking their truths publicly, that they got some reprisals, you know, that they got labeled as crazy, or they got actually institutionalized for a short hold. I have to say, in full disclosure, I've had 2 of those experiences over the past 25 years. 2 times when I had so much truth that hadn't popped out for a long time, that I just started saying everything that was on my mind, total truth to everybody all the time, and which ended up looking pretty disruptive. And I got sent to psychiatric care twice that I'm sure of. Yeah, I think that was it. The rest of the time, you know what they say, a hero dies 1 death and a coward dies 1,000 deaths. So, you know, I've been called crazy and labeled and put away thousands of times in my imagination for things that I didn't even do. So that's also what I'm trying to help. It's like the more that we know, the less power we can put into the, did you hear what he said? Did you think it's true? Do you think it's really, and I mean, we're going to always be asking those questions, and that's fine. but I feel like we give away too much of our power, and I get back. So here's the breakdown on MK Ultra in case you haven't already gotten the 101. The 101 of it is that secret society, they have probably always existed, and there are several reasons why they would be. For me, the most obvious reason for secret societies, besides control, the whole cabal idea, the really honest and clean reason for secret societies is that Orthodox religion was never encompassing all of the truth. And if you wanted actual truth to come out, you had to be very careful who you said things to, which burning was real, being forced to publicly recant. If you were the higher you were as a public citizen, the more you had to watch what came out of your mouth and make sure it abided by the code of whatever society you were in. So secret societies had to be created not only to protect the people so that they would have a free place to explore other truths, but also because some truths are very delicate and very special, and you have to approach them with a lot of heart. And sometimes you need to put some secrecy in there. So the secret society dark side that we're starting to see now is a lot more a reflection of how secret societies were used to create institutions of control that people wouldn't know were there. And so there's a light side and a dark side to secret societies. And as far as I can tell, they've always been with us in both measure. So what we do know is that people have always been very curious about human potential. There's always been just enough transcendental God realm information out there that people have been curious. So as you know, the Nazis did lots and lots of interesting experiments on people, from the most debased, taking their skin and seeing what you could make out of them. And some of this is all propaganda that we've been given. So we don't even know what's true and what's not. But what we do know is that there was something called Project Paperclip. And what Project Paperclip was is that at the end of World War II, the US needed to take some control over all this information that the Nazis had created in their experiments. And so they thought they would go ahead and invite them to join the scientific community here in the US and Canada, rather than have them fall into Russian hands, who, because communism was so bad, blah, blah, blah. So that was the cover story anyway. So all these Nazi scientists came over with all of the stuff that they had been exploring regarding eugenics, human psychology, the use of information in a society, propaganda, and whatever other, maybe they had some access to some alien technology. That's possible too, the flying saucer experiments. So there was a lot. There's a lot of reasons why the US would want them in. And it also kind of begs the question of who really won World War II. If the history books are written by the victors, did the Nazis actually win World War II, since all their scientists stayed and had great careers, and all their companies that were flourishing during World War II are still here and still major multi-billion-dollar companies? So what was the point of World War II? Good question. All right. So as they brought these Project Paperclip scientists over and gave them a relatively free hand and a pretty good budget to work with, it was a few things took off like wildfire. And as we know, when LSD came out, the CIA was all over it. They wanted to be able to explore and experiment with it. Fortunately, people like Ram Dass and Timothy Leary really weren't that interested in sharing their higher states with the CIA. And so thank goodness they kept all of that free range. So you could say that there's two different forces within society. There's the force of chaos, which means like freedom, overthrow sometimes, diversity, diversification, and exploring. And then there's the force of containment, enclosure, and control, which seems to be what the mainstream government's really good at. So they put a lid on all this new consciousness force that was coming out and be able to repurpose it for them. So this comes to my personal story, which is experiences, dreams. There was a parallel it is all in certain life choices. 10th grade, about 1980, 1979 club. I was like, yeah, why would I want to do that? Number one, I hate wearing makeup, and I don't think I want to act all peppy on camera, so you guys are just going to have to put that one away. But then we saw how many of those entertainment people came up through the Mickey Mouse Club. So I thought the Mickey Mouse Club was stupid, but it actually turned out to be the gateway for government approved entertainers, right? And that they didn't have to act peppy and sprightly, and I was really surprised that their sexuality, when they first started expressing their sexuality like bad girls and bad boys, I thought, yay, you go. But then seeing it also getting owned by the society. So we're in a really messy society, as you can see, and we don't know what's up and what's down, and that's why it's really important to be as truthful as possible. I could say, oh yeah, I had access to becoming part of the government. I had access to becoming part of their system. I turned it down each and every time because it just didn't appeal to me. It felt creepy, and I didn't think I could live like that, like watching everything I said for 2 or 3 different meanings, and being in an in group and having the rest of the world in the out group, having privilege also didn't appeal to me whatsoever. Any more privilege than just being a white person in America already gives you. Okay, so Kendra, what would you like to say on the topic in general, or your experience with recruitment, for instance?
I think I've had much experience with recruitment per se. I mean, I can remember when I was like a child and maybe in dream time going on to like certain ships into different classrooms. Also, when I was at like Catholic schools for like basketball meets, I would afterwards, when I would go home, I'd have dreams that I was.
Oh no, I think we lost you. Are you here? I have to say Kendra is on her phone, and so things can cut in and out. If you are outside the chat, try and come back in. I'm going to tap on you here, see if I can find you. And I think there's a way to add people, so I may have to add her again. Let's see if that happens. Let's see if I can get her. Okay, I guess we're going to move right along, and I'm hoping that she comes back. Let me see if there's a way for me to check. You see, I'm sorry about the technology, guys. I was telling you it could get a little weird as we try to bring people in. Yep, so she says that her video got disconnected. I'm going to try and add her back into the chat, and we'll see what happens. But when you're working on your phone or when your computer is a little bit squidgy, it can be really challenging. Okay, let's see what we got here. All right, Kendra, I'm going to try and add you back in from your web email. Let's see.
Is it connected?
Oh, I hear you. You're back.
Okay. I'm just going to turn my camera off because I feel like it's not working as well when I hold it, I think.
Okay, that's fine. If you can turn it off and still stay on the chat, that would be cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So, yeah, like I was saying, like as a child, very observant of everything. I felt very sensitive to energy. I could read anyone's energy, if they were a good person or a bad person, or if they were a pedophile, or, if they made me feel very uncomfortable, just with like a glance, I could tell like what they were into. So I think that was good, you know, because like it really is, it's nice to be connected to everything, but I think as a child it's a little overwhelming, and you can see bad intentions in people, and it's like scary because you don't want to see that in other people. And how can we change that, you know? So I'd think about stuff like that. And my grandfather's side of the family, Catholics, and very ingrained in that patriarchal society. Um, he was very abusive to my father and his wife, beat her, you know, but they came from a very like influential family. My mother's side was Jewish and came from Odessa, Ukraine, right before the when the time when the Nazi regime was in effect, and they fled to save their lives and their family. So I'm very thankful for my grandmother for, you know, getting out of that situation and keeping me alive basically through the lineage. But yeah, it's definitely I can see, I remember being 8 years old and really just looking into my grandfather's side and just understanding the whole pyramid structure and how it worked and how money worked and how it was based on ancient Egyptian mystery school teachings. And then I could see into also the pyramid structure of the 33-degree Masons, and you know how that works. And it scared the hell out of me. I was 8 years old, and so I got scared, and then I felt like a very dark energy come over me, and I just always felt like I was running from that, like running from that energy, and I'd always be scared, like someone was chasing me, someone was going to kidnap me. I had almost been kidnapped many times as a child, and I believed that it had to do with the pedophile ring that they were trying to bring me into, because my grandfather was a sexually abusive man, and um, he sexually abused many children in the neighborhood and
This
his
was
own family.
your dad's side, the Catholic one?
Yeah, yes. And his father was a politician. Um, and basically, when that came out into light, you know, the church always says they'll keep it in the family, keep it in the family, but nothing's ever resolved with it. It just is shame, you know, you feel ashamed and the children feel ashamed. And then it's like, and then, you know, it's just sad. But so I remember, you know, part of my contract to come in was to break that down and break the cycle, because it goes deep. It goes very deep into satanic ritualism and child trafficking, and you know, it's just sad. And you know, I thank God I never was kidnapped or like severely abused, but I had, you know, fears of that, and I abused myself, you know, as a drug addict for several years. And then figured I felt so lost from everything, and I was numbing myself for so long that it's nice to, I started to remember when I went to rehab, because I was asking God for a sign, a prayer, please help me. You know, I was so miserable and living in such hate of myself and everything around me that, you know, I remember seeing that book, Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love. And it was almost like, I remember just standing there and staring at it. And I was like, why am I staring at this book? Like, but I wouldn't read it. And then I kept seeing numbers like 427, which is my birthday. And I would see that on the clock all the time. And the message I kept getting was that you have to return to your true purpose. And that's what I've been doing the last 4 years. And it's been a lot of work, but I feel great. And I feel like myself again. And it feels great to remember who you are and how great we are, and that we have no limits, and that we are like amazing individuals that have something to offer and to co-create together and to be loving people and share the beauty. And that's, you know, that's what I want to do now, to help people be strong and, you know, trash all the stereotypes of I am a woman, I'm a man. Like, it's more like androgynous kind of, and it's not gay, it doesn't have to be gay, you know, but I mean, it's just love for all, like the one concept that we are all connected. But definitely I've gone through a lot when I was kind of deprogramming, and I definitely could, once I started getting my psychic gifts back, it was overwhelming, and it's scary because you don't realize like what's real, and like you've been taught by society to think that this isn't real, but it is. And I could hear like in my mind, it was like temporal region, like they were trying to like mess with me, because I started to like research the Illuminati and monarch programming, and it's just, it's crazy, you know. Like I started really seeing it in the pop stars like Britney Spears. Like I grew up like loving Britney Spears, wanting to be Britney Spears, basically, you know. And then I felt really sad for her when she was going through all that. And I started watching some of the videos when they were interviewing her. And you can see the entity come and take over her. It's like crazy, you know, like she's like looks at it and she says, "Oh," and then she just gets wicked emotional. And I realized that for myself, it was, the energy would be like picking on all my fears and things that maybe I had done to myself, making me feel like, oh, you want to kill yourself, or, you know, you could never shine because look at all these bad things that you did, you know, to yourself, and everybody's going to laugh at you. And I would actually like when would, I could actually hear sometimes like my biggest fear was like, everyone's going to laugh at me if I tell the truth, you know? I heard a laugh track in my head. Like it was almost like gaslighting, like to make me go crazy or something. But I just would sit there and I said, okay, just breathe. This isn't you. And like come back to my center, because it's scary when that stuff starts happening. Also, another time I remember hearing like, um, it was almost like energy like went from, I was feeling so loving in my heart, and the energy went like into my head like really high frequency, and it and then I couldn't feel the love anymore in my heart. And I remember hearing a voice say, "Oh, now," like laughing and saying, "Oh, now she lost her ability to love," because they were like trying to fuck with my frequency. I don't know, it was really insane. But these are just a few instances, and then I ended up in the mental hospital, and that was definitely not pleasant. Um, it was the shape of a pentagon, and there was no ventilation whatsoever. And I just, that's when it started getting really weird. And I could definitely go into a few things that happened in there. But it's just, what do you think?
I think that it's pretty fascinating. When we get down to the 3D, it's really hard to figure out how any of this can happen. But when we talk about entities being involved, or I think that the ultimate in gaslighting can also be that making us not believe in ourselves. So then they've actually cloned themselves into our subconscious. So they don't even have to be there. Like if you can get people to distrust themselves on a deep enough level, they'll just police each other and they'll police themselves, and they can just walk away and go hang out on their yacht or whatever it is that they do for fun. So I wonder sometimes if some of that, and I've actually heard it externalized more, like when people, I get a lot lately of like these really quick and random snippets of sound that come through, like if somebody's watching television and it seems like they're watching a particular cartoon, but then there'll be this other snippet of something totally different. And I'll be like, wow, I wish I was watching that so I'd understand the context that just came through. And something that I have happen a lot is that I will think a new thought or go to a new idea and hang out in it, and something in my outer realm will reflect that back to me, which is where I kind of got that idea of like, am I just on an operating table somewhere and everything is just a reflection of my consciousness? I don't totally get how this works. I can understand that we're quantum creators. I can understand that what we decide to send out is going to be reflected to us because it's kind of a round universe, you know, so anything that you bounce, it is going to ping and it's going to return, it's going to ping you again. So you'll get what you're sending, and then you'll get it coming back on the other side. I can see that that is something that's totally possible. I feel that no matter which dimensional thing is true, that it still only leaves you and me with one choice. And I wonder how you're going to feel about this. The choice that we have in any given moment is to hold back or move forward. So when you're holding back, maybe you're gathering more data, but the data just keeps like reflecting off itself and just getting more confusing, and then counteracting itself here, and then somebody else chimes in with that. So I find for myself, at least, holding back and gathering more data doesn't always help anymore. That the observer changes that which is observed, and by the fact that you're just hanging out listening is already changing what's going on. So then I will become more active within my interaction with this stimulus, and I find that that seems to feel pretty good. So like going to the heart, feeling the body, noticing where there's tension, being willing to see and feel anything, because you have created for yourself a core stability. And I feel like that must be what happened to you, that you got yourself to that core self-love stability, and then you could watch this other stuff bouncing in and out of your own consciousness and go, oh, that's really not me. And you can tell too, because if it's like the laugh track and stuff, it always feels angry and sardonic, like what you would call demonic, right? Like it's like
Right.
nee, nee, right?
Well,
It's got
it
that
sounded
attitude.
like, yeah, it sounded like basically like a tape, and it was like it sounded pretty loud, like acoustic, and I was just like, whoa, this is like crazy. I can't believe I heard that. But also other times I would hear like the celestial choir. Like that was pretty cool when I heard that. But definitely you know, it's sacred geometry, harvesting energy for part of the purpose that I definitely don't agree with, the one world order, you know, agenda 21, I guess. Like, I mean, I don't really research a lot of that, but I know the whole system, how it's working, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, Morgan, the capitalistic banking system, how that pyramid scheme works, and the monopoly of, you know, media, centralized banking, the religion, you know, their fingers are in all those pots, so that's how they create the control structure, and it's not working for anyone, you know. So I decided to break away from that. I prayed for equality for all people, like we're all the leaves on the tree of life. We're all there together, but we're different, you know. um, so that after I had that prayer, and it was very, and you know, I asked also for my 12 strand DNA, and off I could be happy and love myself again. And then that night I woke up to this sound. It sounded like an atomic bomb, but it seemed like nobody else heard it. It was so loud. And I woke up and I like was like, what is that? And it, you know, from what I understand now, it was almost like a huge energy upload. And you know, I went from basically being completely in the dark, because I had been addicted to opiate drugs for almost 7 years at that point. And I was so desperate to get off them. I was working 40 hours a week, making great money. But basically, I knew in my heart that I was like trapped in this, you know, drug addiction, no purpose in life. I remember asking someone, well, you know, what's the purpose of life? We're not meant to just work these jobs that we're not happy in and just go from work to home and be living in poverty still, addicted to drugs, addicted to sex, addicted to, you know, everything, like food. So he said, nope. He said, nope, that's all there is. And I said, no, I'm
Who's
not going to
he?
believe that some random guy, like I was probably cutting his hair or something. I don't know. I just was like, I'm like, no, I'm not satisfied with that answer. So I started researching and like, what is my purpose? Got into more like reading some of like the channeling messages, which I feel like could have given me some psychic parasites that maybe enhance some of my psychosis in some aspects, because you're in a lot of them, they would have good and bad, and then also there was a lot of invocations, and you shouldn't invoke what you don't understand, you know what I mean? And I didn't understand it, a lot of it at the time, so maybe I was invoking some energies that weren't really helpful, um but definitely, like I said, I ended up getting off drugs cold turkey, and my thyroid definitely went out of whack, and all my like the amygdala part of my brain kind of cracked a little, and I feel like all these traumatic experiences from my childhood and memories flooded back into my body, and it was so overwhelming that I didn't know what to do, and I quit my job, and I said, I'm going to move back to New Hampshire, and I'm going to just go back into nature and be like, heal myself. Because I always felt very healed when I would go out in the woods and just relax and be one with nature. And I just wanted to kind of get back to that. And, it was really difficult because I felt a lot of oppression. I was started speaking my truth and speaking what happened to me and speaking out against the system, and talking about stuff that is more hush hush. And I was opposed like very hard from my family, and I was put in the mental hospital again. I was taken. 5 police officers came to my house, and I said, I've done nothing wrong. Like, please leave my property. And they pushed me against the wall and put handcuffs on me and took me to the mental hospital. And I said, well, am I being arrested? Why do I have handcuffs on? Why are there 5 police officers at my house? And no, like they took me to the mental hospital. And I did find out that I had my thyroid levels were all out of whack. They were at 12.7. So I think that I did definitely have psychosis, a little bit, but it was basically just a flooding of all the memories coming back, and um, just different understanding of what was going on and how I played into all of that, and why this was happening to me. But it's definitely really scary, like being taken against your will, um, and you feel very unsafe. And a lot of those institutions are like a prison. You're locked in. There's no ventilation. You can't open the windows. A lot of religious persecution. I felt I didn't want to be taking medicine. I had been self-drugging myself for so long. I was very adamant I didn't want any medication, and they basically like force you to take it if you want any chance of getting out of there. Um, so yeah, I was there for a month. That was the second time I was there, and I just remember in dream time the Cardinals coming to me, and like I breaking contracts with the Cardinals, and like them basically trying to backstab me and like steal my energy back. And it's
But
just
they can't do it once you know what they're up
yeah,
to. Isn't that
yeah,
cool?
yeah. They can't. It's all like blood sacrifice, like, and um, it's just disgusting when you really understand what they do and how they're getting their power. And they're not, they have this front of being so holy, and they do have some power. They have a lot of power, but underground what they're doing is, satanic ritualism, sacrificing babies, teaching how to control your family, rape children, psychic abuse, um, diverting energy. They take the energy from the babies and they basically trap those souls for their purpose. And you know, those souls have they basically take their voice away, you know. But those souls have a choice too, and they're ready to leave too. It's, you know, it's not working.
Yeah. And what's really, really sad to me is that the one tool that they can use that gives them the door in to begin with, because they could kidnap children, they could sacrifice them, they could do all, they get us doubting ourselves. That's like where they really get the foot in. And frankly, it's right there in their Adam and Eve story, right? You know, Eve wanted to try the apple of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In other words, she wanted knowledge, she wanted to understand. And so by vilifying her within the myth, they've actually made it so that they get people doubting themselves from the get-go, going, oh, I don't know, I'm a fuck up. Authority has to be trusted. They're good. They are not going to mess things up like I did or whatever. So Kendra, I see that you dropped off the call. Hopefully you'll come back.
I just
got,
there
you are? So that's not too bad. You came back
no,
easily.
I got dropped. I missed what you just said, but I just got
I said mostly they get a foothold by getting us to doubt ourselves in the first place.
Right.
So that we'll be like, oh, I can't trust my own knowing. I have to trust authority, because what happened with Adam and Eve and the apple, you know, going with your free will caused the downfall of humanity. I mean, what a stupid myth to tell everybody.
Right. Well,
when you talk about child sacrifice and how they harvest energy, is this all stuff that you learned on the inner? I mean, because I know that I know it's practically a trope now. And yet there's a lot of people who are in the 3D who are like, wait, show me the proof. So where did you pick up the extent of the systematized?
I started watching a lot of videos on YouTube about it. The New Earth Nation, New Earth Project movement.
So you saw it as possible and it resonated as being likely true?
Well, because I was doing a lot of chakra clearing on myself and like exploring my body within, which I hadn't done ever, because I had been sexually abused by my grandfather, and I was running from that with my drug addiction, whatever. So I started really questioning why I had these ailments, why I was feeling so sick, and the answers what I was getting back, and then how it tied father and what he was involved in, and the Catholicism, which then led into just researching different religions, and I started reading the Bible a little bit and just using my intuition, what felt right, what felt like control, and just kind of going through all that information. But I had always had an understanding of sexuality from a very young age because being abused. And when he touched me, I just almost got like an energetic download of everything he knew and what he was involved in. And I just remember like sex cults and stuff like that, and how they were harvesting the chi for their purpose, to support, that system of control and the money structure and how it all ties in together. It was more of, with my third eye and just going within and questioning, the root of my issues and how it like pertained to what was going on in the outside world.
It makes perfect sense. In a way, mind probably breaks it down into sacred geometry and energy flows. So you'll have like this vision of a dodecahedron or something that's pulling energy in, and you'll go, oh, now we can see how they're using the tech and you'll watch people around you as you're growing up do things that make sense to them but look really unhealthy to you, like kissing the Pope's ring or whatever. And then you're like,
Right.
why did they do that? What's really behind that? And then the child's mind is very, loosey-goosey. They can go anywhere. And so they'll go and explore that. And then they can get an entire download about, kissing the ring through time, and where that originated, probably in Egypt, that it was a sign of, submission, loyalty, something to do with the gem itself. So a lot of things may like play in if there was a gem involved or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
all
and
of this. Go ahead.
Just like saying that I always had an issue with authority over myself because of the abuse, and I was always very tough. I felt like I had to be very tough, and you can see that with any of those religions and monarchies. I do also want to add this. I remember when I was a child, maybe like 8 or 9, they're going over like a bridge over from New England to, and just exploring the city with my energetic body in dream time. And I remember being drawn into some kind of cathedral where, it had to do with like the contracts of energy with the queen and everything. And basically that just reminds me that, you have to revoke the crown because they have their ties into diverting the natural sacred sacred patterns for their disgusting rule. And so basically I just want to add that Andrew Bartzis has a lot of great contract revocations because a lot of people don't understand that our power is tied into the social security system, it's tied into the crown, it's tied into all of that system of domination and control. And once you start taking your power back, you do get kind of attacked at first, and it's scary. And maybe you could speak a little bit on like you said crowd stalking or something like that.
So what I've noticed in my truth, tell us first the name of the person who has breaking contracts. You said
Andrew Bartzis.
Bartsis?
Siz.
Siz, something like that? Okay. Because that's really, really interesting. The idea that we have been brought into contracts, some of them were hereditary, some of them were locational. Some we may have only half-wittedly participated in, like when in school, for instance, kids are like believing something that the popular person says and disbelieving something the unpopular person says. So those kind of half-assed contracts where you've signed off certain of your power to the popular person. Those are contracts too. Probably every move through time and space that we make is a form of a contract. So the way I see it is that there's a true grid and there's a false grid. And what we had on the planet was that the false grid was trying to take over and usurp the true grid. So Gaia had her own grid. She had her own plan. She had her own person. She is like in the other dimensions, a person like you or me. And we probably are part of that person, little nerve endings in a woman in another dimension who has decisions to make about what to do with her energy. So that energy got usurped and twisted and used against her and was basically a rape situation energy for several millennia. I feel that the Christ, what do I call it? The Christ mission was trying to help by changing that balance, that he came in as the husband, she was the bride. And it played out all the different damage that's still been done, about the apostles possibly doing an end run around Mary Magdalene, writing her out as the equal redeemer. The whole setup with Jesus versus the Pharisees, and like he's a popular hero, but at the same time that's a crime you know, in Rome, being a demagogue would definitely be a crime against the state. And Jesus,
Right.
like moving during the crucifixion, him moving into his highest mission and sending out basically a big carrier wave of unconditional love and forgiveness is what I feel is the redemption, was that he thought like this one perfect thought feeling and he emanated it. And
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
that one carrier wave that Christianity, you know, can validate itself with, but also they will, you know, jump off into their own control agendas based on it. So one of the questions is, was that original carrier wave, and any carrier wave that you or I could generate in any given moment too, of unconditional love, protection, knowing, you know, it's kind of, that's the space where we kind of have to live in, and to get back there and be that as many times as possible as we get pulled off into, you know, space-time planning, you know, doing stuff. If we can live more and more from that place of that one impeccable thought, that one fully embodied self, I feel that that the Jesus story can hold some usefulness in that way. But most of it gets used against us because you're not Jesus. And if you say you're Jesus, you're going to go get locked up somewhere. And they're waiting for Jesus to come back. But then anytime anyone tries to emerge, they lock them up. So like, what's up with that?
Right. Well, because there's Jesus Christ he walked this earth. They want to paint it as he had this easy life. No, he fought. He was breaking out of a mold. He was teaching people how to love again, how to be one with your true power again. And the church did not like that. And that's why they killed him. This is an example. And that's what they have the crucifixion. They show everyone, oh, this is basically what's going to happen to you, you know, if you speak out. And it's
Oh,
sad
so you
because
resonated with that.
oh yeah. And I mean, like, I love Jesus Christ and I love Mary Magdalene, and I hate how they make her out to be a whore, because it's not true. She was truly equal with him, and she helped him be even more strong and to fulfill his mission. And you know,
Yep.
I love Jesus Christ. He paved the way with light. You know, he made it easier for us to connect with our Christ consciousness. And when we say, yeah, like you said, we're prosecuted if we say we're Jesus Christ, we are Christ. We're descendants of Christ, all of us. So that means obviously that we could tap into that power as well, doesn't it?
It's in the Bible. It says, all this that I'm doing, you shall do and more. You
Know
know, he was like,
thyself, you know, look within your power, help your, like, shine, you know, the 7 seals, the 7 chakras, open your chakras, look within each chakra. The secrets are all within. Key, like John Lennon said, it is true, love is the master key.
it's true. It's so great. Anyway, yeah, we can like revel in that for a while. So back down. So here's the thing. Is it part of the human mind to want to always create order, systems, and control? Or is this a very special thing that's really super evil, and whatever evil is for us? In the sci-fi novel, the way I wrote it was that there were some scientists on another planet who tinkered with God-type energies, and they accidentally fucked their whole planet up. And this hadn't been the first time either. And so they fled just ahead of the catastrophe that pretty much incinerated everyone that they knew. It was like in Atlantis, but on a different planet before our Atlantis. And they came to Earth, or it could be maybe they were fleeing to Atlantis extra-dimensionally. But in my book, what happened was these people who had, you know, great knowledge, but also not enough balance to not fuck things up, accidentally fucked things up. And they came to our planet and found us living pretty much like cattle as far as they were concerned. They had this really bad habit of control. And so they've created all these different societies and cultures, from the Chaldeans and the Assyrians on down, where there are like god men who show up and become kings. They install themselves as god kings because they've got more technology. But what they don't have is the smarts not to fuck their planet up again and again. So if there are reptilians, if there are bad ETs, the way I see it is no matter how much power they may seem to have on a psychological level, like let's say they are able to program the television and program ads and use subliminals and keep people basically bouncing off of fear and trauma. You know, like you get a little too close to the truth and something shocks you and moves you back again. I call that trauma-based mind control. And it's very subtle though. Like you'll just think a certain thought that's a little outside the box and then you'll go, ooh, that, you know, and so yeah, flashing the crucifix and a symbol, like a sign of a suffering Christ, you know, and
Right.
even voices that'll tell you, oh, it'll never work, or look what we did to him, or, you know, stuff like that. All that stuff is mind chatter. And so that's the really, really interesting thing, is that although they will play with your emotions, for instance, bonding you, they say, with a handler, like some sort of an adult who comes on like a mentor, who is supposed to be taking you to your highest expression as a being, but actually most of their dictates have to do with what not to do and how to not tip your hand and shh, you know, the SHHH Illuminati stuff that they use.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's
Like
supposed
that
to be
just,
don't tell. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I just want to add something that just reminded me, like when I got out of the hospital in Florida, that it was almost like everybody knew me. And like people were like, I was trying to get home and I was stayed at a hotel. There's a huge thunderstorm going outside. This family that seemed military related sitting outside at the pool while the thunderstorm's going on and on. It was just so odd and like just outside my window. It was so weird. So like I got really bold and I would just go up to all these people and shake their hand and introduce myself. And you know, I would get shocked by their hand. It was like a negative, like grounding me out in a way, you know what I mean? Like, because my energy was so high and it just felt like a zap and like it hurt. It was really strange. And they all looked like that prototype of like, you know, the white hair, gout looking white men, like the Pope looking guy. And I was just like, the things they were saying to me, you know, oh, some girl, she went swimming with the sharks, you know, stuff like that. Like,
Right?
just,
Like, are they
you
talking
know,
in code about you?
yeah, because I had jumped into this river where I supposedly there was all these sharks and stuff, and like I guess it made quite a splash in the community. And
So to speak.
yeah, exactly. Because they were astounded that I didn't get eaten by an alligator or a shark. But my energy was so high, nothing was going to come after me because I was the tough dog in that situation. You know what I mean? My wavelengths of energy coming out were so strong. Nothing was going to come after me. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it was like, at that point, I was ready to die because I was like, I felt like so trapped into it. And I was just I felt like I was my light self again, but I was like running because like people were trying to like attack me or take me to the hospital or whatnot. And,
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
this is the part that really worries me. So yeah, oh, so before they came to take you to the hospital, you had already been feeling pretty noited, like, I mean, pretty paranoid about things. I'm trying to figure out like how, because when I got taken, I knew
Right.
what I
I
had
was very scared at that time because yeah. So basically, like,
as we both decide, how much do we want to share about the backstory of this? It's like, how much do we really want to tell people? So for me, when I too had 5 sheriffs come and take me to,
yeah, I'm like, well, it's really unclear at the,
uh-oh, bad transmission
I know I
again.
was just like, you can't hear me?
It's cutting in and out, and like tinny sometimes. So maybe we should talk about something else, or maybe you'll finish your sentence.
Well, I guess that like basically I needed to be in the hospital, but I didn't really want to be there. Um, but I don't. It was very strange how it led up to that because I was very coming into my energy. I kept hearing like seemed like everything was talking to me, like the songs all pertain to me, and that's why I think like maybe I did have some kind of, and like I said, my thyroid was way out of whack. It was very high, which causes like psychosis. So I was like, some of this could, definitely not be real. But I started to see things with my third eye more and like hear like spirit. And I was just, from what it seemed like around me, it seemed a lot of military kind of stuff was going on. Because at the time it was like a lot of false flags were going on. A lot of stuff with ISIL was going on. And it was very tense. It was like 2012, August 8th, 2012. Or no, 2014, I'm sorry. And basically, I just know it was a very pivotal moment. There was a lot of energy coming in. I remember the Lion's Gate portal that I did like an energy invocation, and just a lot of energy was coming in. And so basically, I was trying to figure out everything. And like I said, I quit my job. I decided I was going to drive back to New Hampshire. But I was having like a Kundalini awakening, it felt like. And I wasn't physically healthy enough to handle that because I had been using drugs for 7 years, like I said, and I quit cold turkey. So it was just too much at once. And I basically was going to burn out. And,
Yeah.
I'm almost thankful that I did end up in the hospital, even though it was very traumatizing, because I can't imagine where I would be if I kept from Florida up the States, like having kind of feeling uneasy about things. Probably be dead on the side of the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do notice, for instance, Kenny was telling his story about how he had had a psychotic break and that he had gone to jail he had gone to the mental hospital, and that these beings, these other inmates, were like giving him a bunch of really interesting information and identifying themselves as super beings. And I'm thinking a lot of times the things that come to us and appear to be negative could really be working out for us positive. A lot of times what this ends up being is it really comes down to the story that we tell ourselves. If we tell ourselves a story in which we are unfolding and becoming stronger every day, learning about ourselves and loving ourselves more and more, becoming more and more of a conscious agent within our own life, what I feel, if you can keep telling yourself that story instead of the story of you'll never break out, you'll never be free, everything's going down, they own everything, that's a story too. Within the limit of timelines, every timeline is really just a story. It's got its own grid work, it's got its own informational points. And you can see how everybody carries a model of the world and their place in it and how it works. And whether they're at peace with it or whether they're in opposition to it, everyone's got one of these. And they're not on the same plane, which I find fascinating, the fact that we can all share this space with completely different heads. And nothing, sometimes bad stuff happens, sometimes good stuff happens, and sometimes mysterious stuff happens, and it all just keeps going. One case in point, for instance, is that like in the late 70s, my parents were preppers. My mom had married this guy who had come from California, and they were enjoying way too much of the fruits of the 70s. Lots of music, Moody Blues and Fleetwood Mac, and like lots of drinking, playing backgammon, doing sort of the hipster alcohol thing in Santa Fe, and they would run cocaine from time to time, and they would read as much weird stuff as they could get their hands on. So they became preppers. They believed that the economy was about to collapse. Things, World War III was definitely on the horizon. The Cold War couldn't hold out much longer. We were going to have an economic collapse, and basically they were thinking about the zombie apocalypse is what we call it, like 35, almost 40 years ago. And so they started like hoarding gold. And then no collapse came. So although Reagan got in, which was kind of like, it probably was the culmination in whatever tensions they were trying to bring, was just to get Reagan into office. You know, get everyone really paranoid and then bring in a strong father type figure who's actually a puppet. Perfect. Makes perfect sense. So I feel like no matter how layered the stories get, what we really have to come back to in the end is uniting with all of life, loving ourselves so we realize that we are a positive and generative part of life. You know, that we generate our own meaning. We generate our own frequency fields.
Exactly.
And I feel that if you can do this with enough authority, you actually can rewrite and repurpose all of that physical matrix stuff. And it's actually almost a yoga that you could try. Okay, so when I was a little kid, in my grandfather's military household, I would be able to sit around and go through like his collection of first editions or coins or presidential memorabilia, because we had presidents in. Hang on, you're crackling.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I'm not sure what you're up to, but it was loud. Okay. Sorry. Are you comfy? Are you comfy now?
Yeah. Well, no, my brother-in-law came to the door and he said there was food ready, and I was like, oh, sorry, I'm on the phone. I just muted it. I
Cool.
put my hand over it.
Okay, cool. Well, it's been so great that you've been able to share your story, and you brought up a lot of really important hot topics. And I can see how when you had been taken away really without your conscious consent, even though in the end it turned out to really protect you, that that can make that's what makes us nervous about sharing our truths publicly. But I really do feel that it's a liberation of energy, and I'm hoping that by talking with me, you'll find yourself like, feeling a lot more free.
I can talk for a little bit longer if you'd like.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like a half an hour.
Okay, you don't feel your family will mind. So what I wanted to say to finish up real quick then is that I would look over the money iconography, and I'd look at some of his old antiques and stuff, and I could feel the presence of this really military energy that was like redirecting. And you know, they on the dollar bill they had like 13 arrows and 13 olive branches and things like that. And I would like, and yet it took incredible discipline to create the amount of linear geography on that money. It wasn't flowy. It was real static.
Right.
It was about imposing and maintaining patterns. And yeah, some of the patterns like the olive leaf could be indicating a possibility for peace. But then there's the arrows. And so it was always tough for me to decide whether this Illuminati iconography was like all about evil or if it was something that we could repurpose. So for me, I spend a lot of time allowing myself to see the good behind the evil, because when I can do that, then I kind of make the evil part like break up like clouds on a sunny day. So for me, the truth behind the evil, so you've got this, the pyramid, and you've got the single eye coming through it. For me, that means one self. In other words, I am one. And it is the top of the pyramid because the higher self is the oneness that is us. It's also the third eye, which is sort of like the single eye that's on top of this entire being. So for me, I could see the occult truths that were not evil. And sometimes when I've met people who I thought were going to be evil or really into control, and I was able to connect with them and I could see their higher self. So that caused a lot of confusion for me because some of these people seemed like they were completely, truly loving. So like, what's up with all the control matrix stuff? You know, not to mention the actual non-loving, almost satanic, and that's not, how do I say, some people who are Satanists, they can justify their theology by saying, hey, Lucifer was just the rebel. You know, he was the bright and morning star. He's here to liberate everyone. So it's like I can see that people have got the good inside the evil and the evil inside the good. Like if you try to legislate morality, everybody green, then you get a lot of pushback because that's a form of fascism too, or so they say.
Right.
So like we don't want to
because
fascist.
Right. And I think that everybody wants to have general principles of caring for each other, the golden rule, you know, do no harm to one another. Foster Gamble was saying, what was he just like, what is he saying on that video?
So Foster Gamble's the dude who made Thrive, right? He made the Thrive video.
Yes. He says oh my God. It's like basically non-violence, oppression. Like I can't believe I can't think of the word right now. I just watched it. But basically yeah. Basically, you know, we should all be coming if you're a loving person and you love yourself, you're gonna just your presence, being fully centered in yourself, in love, connected to the earth, you know, connected to the divine or consciousness, you're gonna automatically, you know, shake up everything around you, and that's, you know, where you should start, within yourself. And then just people being in your presence, they're going to absorb that subconsciously. And then
that's
also
how I think we've gotten this far.
Right. And then also just, you know, becoming strong enough to speak your truth in a way that doesn't come across as, I'm going to tell you this and you better believe it, or we're not going to be friends anymore. You know, people have their own perception. They're going to understand things on their own level of thinking, and we can't force it upon them. But if you're coming from a loving place, most people are going to accept that. But, you know, also some people don't like the love, but I feel like even they want it, you know, even the evil satanic ones, they're probably sick of it too. How much of the same thing can you do? Sex, drugs, you know, it all gets old. It's all the same. And it's like, I think that they must get sick of it too in some aspects. I hope they do, at least.
I think so too. And they've based so much of their false theology, bless its heart, whatever. It got them through the night. They really, how do I say? I was going to say they put so much of their false ideology on a sort of a perverted and twisted love that it seems very obvious to me is missing something, that
the divine feminine.
Yeah, exactly. And they have such a death craving. They've been dealing death to so many that they probably have this massive death craving themselves. And the ultimate death, of course, is loss of ego. So it's a great time for people in the cabal to just lose their egos. That would be fabulous, because then I really think that they would start sharing on this. See, there's nothing wrong per se in my mind. There's nothing wrong with the fact that the 0.001% ended up with all the resources. What's wrong about it is continuing to hang on to them. It's like, okay, I could see how all of society was created so that we could get enough money in one place to like do some massive rollout of awesomeness, you know, that would like empower students and empower creators and empower inventors. And like, you know, they could probably, if the 0.001% just let go of wealth and but didn't put it into more control agenda things, if they actually like really invested it in humanism, but everything can be perverted. It's just so annoying.
It's sad. And that's what I've been working on a lot, is the sexuality, working on my own sexuality and understanding what is love and what is sex and what is addiction and what is what do I want for myself, you know? I want to have loving, intimate relationships with a deeper connection. And it's almost like tantra, I guess. Like you're using your creative force, like physically and energetically, to create huge change. But it's not just to be like shared with everything and everyone, you know, like you still have free will and you still have control over yourself, because that's where we've been wrong and the women have been so suppressed. And you know, because we are the receivers and we've been so suppressed and just abused because people want to take what they want, you know, they're sick of like waiting for it. But that's not the way to go, raping the earth and just keeping taking. There's no balance, you know. So the women and men are equal with earth, and like instead of giving our power to the people, I just give it all back to Mother Earth, because I know through me, you know, I will get it back through the earth, through the connection with the sun and the earth, and through me, you know. So it's like give it all to earth, because the earth is what's important. If the earth is destroyed, we all die. And look how far we've gotten. Like the bees are all dying, the ecosystems to shit from chemical engineering, geo warfare. And it's so fucked up. Like nobody wants to be sprayed. We're being sprayed like bugs to be exterminated, and it's sad. And I just want the earth to take back control of the ecosystem, because it's obviously, look what happened in California, the drought. It's chemical warfare, you know, Fukushima. Like it's just the earth is ready to like collapse, or I felt like it was a couple years ago. Now I feel really good about it. I feel like people are speaking their truth. We've come together, people are connecting, people are feeling the energy, is the earth is alive. Looking at a tree, you know, don't just look at it like it's nothing. The tree is alive. Like just look a little closer, you know, you'll see the life and everything.
Totally, completely, and awesomely true.
But it's
Yep.
exciting, you know, things are happening, and like I'm
It
just
is.
happy, like, you know, and it's nothing to be scared of. And that's the thing holding us back the most, the fear of ourselves, really. I was so afraid of my own power. It's too strong, it's too strong.
Yep. But then you get to start to use it in safe ways and see that it's actually very beneficial. And there's a whole topic in there too. So let's see. I feel like in
And
my
then it's
dream,
just unstable, but does that.
yeah. I was going to say, I feel like in my dream life or in
You had
some subtle realm, there's a possibility. Okay, I know a lot of people my age and younger who feel like they probably were indoctrinated and or recruited in monarch mind control. And so the way that I process this is that I understand that they wanted to, the way I understand it, and I don't know if I just interacted with these people in my dreams or if I was actually taken to a lab with my classmates and we just had our memories wiped. You can know that I've always been a big opposer. The moment that anything feels weird and feels like I'm just trying to suck me into a dark agenda, I've always just put the brakes on. And so I feel really blessed that way. And they've never interfered with my ability to do that, which I think is really cool. But I have, you know, very often declared war on that, on the control agenda. But there was like, there's this good and bad part about it. And that is that on the plus side, what these Nazi scientists were trying to do was create the self-liberating human being, while knowing that when that self-liberating human being came about, that they and their order would be toast. And it was almost this agreement. I really feel that they did that. Why would they try to augment human consciousness and make these super vixens and super soldiers, people who can jump from enormous heights, people who can have this incredible amount of endurance. You know, people who do these sports feats, you know, they tinker with MK Ultra a lot. In sports, it would seem, as these guys pull off these crazy feats of coordination and timing. So they're trying to create super beings, but wouldn't they know from the get-go that any super being that they created would see through their shit automatically and want something better, and that they wouldn't take privilege and protection just for themselves as being any way to get them off that track. I remember a lot of times it felt like the stakes were really high, that all I would have to do is buy in and say yes, and I could have a perfectly financially comfortable life.
Oh yeah, definitely. I felt like that too, especially with, I would hide behind the fact I knew that people like in that ring would always
I lost you.
accept me if I told, even though I didn't really go to Catholic church. But
could you
know what I
repeat the
mean?
sentence? No, because I lost you during half of that sentence. Can you repeat what you just said?
So basically, like I always felt that if I played along with that game and said I was Catholic, all those people would always just like open up to me and accept me. So like to play that money game, you know what I mean? Like you just kind of hide behind that. Then I realized, you know, that's not what I want for myself, to just be a materialistic fake person that has nothing to offer of value and be miserable with my life. You know, it's just because it's not about the money. And
Yeah.
it's just it's crazy how it's so intertwined with everything, you know. And
yeah, but it's getting easier and easier to like commandeer.
Right. And just see what's you know, truth and what's unreal, and separate that, and you know, keep what's real, you know, remove what's not real. And but you know, we have to look at this stuff because it really has happened, and we need to know where we went wrong and how we were manipulated, because we do all have free will and we all have a choice to make. And you know, I hope that people choose love and choose healing, you know, because it's just going to get harder for the people that don't want that.
Right. It seems like the longer that people avoid facing the truth, and the thicker the illusion that they decide to hide inside of. And people, a lot of Generation X tried to do this. They tried to play both sides of the street. They're like, how about I seek truth on the inner, but I conform in the outer? Let's try that. And maybe that was what they had to do to get through. You know, not everybody's going to want to walk away from the family money and walk away from seeming normal and respectable. Not everyone's going to want to do something outrageous in public that gets them a 5150. You know, not everybody's going to be up for that kind of matrix breaking.
Yeah, because it is, you know, it's scary, and it's not easy, but it's definitely fulfilling, coming into your own power. And you know, it is physically painful sometimes to go through healing and, you know, removing these things from yourself. But you know, just staying strong in your power and knowing, you know, the biggest thing is connecting with your heart, though, instead of just going from your head all the time. Connecting with your heart space. And that was the hardest thing for me, is connecting the head and the heart, the mind body soul connection or spirit connection, you know, because our head's been in charge for so long, and that's part of the control structure, you know, the eye, the one seeing eye, all seeing eye. But if you can learn, like, go from your heart space and then, you know, incorporate your head space when you feel that's kind of evened out, you know, you're going to do a hell of a lot better coming from your heart, because your heart never lies. You know, at
Yeah,
least I don't think it does.
No, it's true. All of the most meaningful spiritual advancement you can do really has nothing to do with the head or internalizing systems and dogmas. It really has to do with being fully interactive with life. And the only place you can be fully interactive is from the heart.
Right.
I'm very curious. There's this thumbnail picture. It's kind of distracting because we don't have your camera phone on right now. We've got this strange thumbnail where it looks like you're doing a handspring. What were you doing in that picture? Do you
So
remember?
there was this huge drum circle going on. It was a full moon, and we were down at the beach, and basically I felt amazing, and I was like running around the beach, and I felt so good. And my friend was taking pictures, and he's like, Kendra, oh my God, like you keep taking these pictures because all these weird lights are around you, and like coming out of you. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I got up in this tiki tree, and I was hanging upside down from it, and that's my chest, and you can see there's like a spiral coming out of it, and it's like a blue energy, and that was just from a regular camera phone. That's not edited, that picture.
Oh,
And
wow. So that's not a blue beanbag. That's like energy. That was
that's
light.
just coming, yeah, that's coming out of my chest. And that was just captured on the film, and it's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Do you see the toroidal force coming out of my heart?
I do. It's
It's like,
fascinating. It looks like there's like a
it's
little
really
sonar
neat.
blip. There's like a blip, blip,
Yeah.
and then there's this spiral, like a double helix spiral from the.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. I like it. Oh my God, I totally thought you were doing like back handsprings next to some big beanbag. I was like,
No,
what?
it's just like the
I love
energy,
it.
and that from isn't it cool? I love that picture. It's so awesome. It just reminds me, it's I see all the wisdom coming out of my heart because I wasn't able to speak it. So it like escaped through my heart basically on the
Right.
picture.
And that's another thing I really want people to realize. Okay, so a lot of people felt really confirmed and triggered by last week's video, which was great. And they also needed to tell me, but I don't really feel like sharing right now. And I want to let you guys know the great part about this liberation mission that we're on is that there isn't really any way for us to get this wrong. First of all, you may be meant to speak some other time and just not right now. And also, even if you're too shy to speak or people get scared, what you can always go back to is being. In other words, you don't need to be public. You don't need to be a speaker. It's great when life makes you have to take a stand once in a while. You will earn your wings that way. When you take an unpopular stand and you stick by it, that's how you build your muscles. But in the end, even when you can't say what's going on, you can still be what's going on. You can still hold that. And it's almost a distraction to think you have to do something on the outer, because what we're really creating is a new system of harmonics on the planet that will be in abiding with the true grid and will just kind of dissolve away the false grid. The most non-blaming way that I tend to look at the false grid is like an eggshell. So the eggshell is this solid structure that's holding all the mushy stuff inside so that the mushy stuff has a chance to turn into a living creature. So all of that codification and everything like that, all of the structure and the rigidity, it's like a protective envelope, which of course must be cracked eventually. But
From the inside out.
yeah, exactly, right? From the inside out.
Because if it's broken from the outside in, then it just is an explosion. But implosion creates growth, because look at the chicken coming out of the shell, the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. It needs that to come from the inside, not the outside.
It does need it to come from the inside, absolutely true. But we also have to realize that that's what the resistance is. You have to peck, you have to chew, you have to punch through it. It's there for you to do so. You are not allowed to not emerge. I mean, you could be recycled, you could die, you could just go ahead and become part of something else. But if you want to live, you're going to have to emerge. And they actually say if they pull aside the cocoon for the butterfly does not get the muscles it needs. It doesn't survive. So it's this part of the punching through the rigidity of the structure and having that opposition and having to use your beak and having to use your claws, that's probably all part of a really, really cool, strong process. So that's how I like to look at the power structure, is that it's something that was created, maybe it was tinkered, blah, 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 but it's meant to go aside. The way I process this is that I tend to think that it's all revolving around the third chakra, the one about power over and power and control structures. And when we've upgraded into a heart-based society and a heart-based resonance, each of us as individuals, that we by necessity outgrow our old structure. So that old structure may have served some purposes, or it may just be evil through and through, but it isn't the end of the story. It's only the end of the story if we let it be the end of the story. I am a big fan of how, okay, for instance, when they put salt or sand all over the resonance plates, and then they play a particular tone, the sand will organize itself into a structure. And then when they play a tone of a higher frequency, it's the same sand or the same salt, but it rearranges itself into a different structure. So that's how I feel like our relationship with the cabal and its structure is going to be. That what it is that we're becoming is so powerfully different that it's going to change the entire construction of all of the matrix that we're in. And all of that stuff that they created is going to either fall apart, get recycled, or get repurposed. So that's what I live for, is that I know that it's all just matter and energy in different configurations, and they've got their configuration, but we've got our configuration. And that's why it's so important to just stay in that loving space, loving yourself. Sometimes the loving thing to do is to be angry, and sometimes the loving thing to do is to point fingers. But at the end of the day, nobody can take away your sovereignty. And the only time that they can take away your sovereignty is when you have allowed them to. And the reason we allow them to is when they talk us into believing that we weren't correct. You know?
Yeah, to not believe in yourself, and like it's almost like a program that I had experience with this, that I would say something, but there was like a script that it would undermine everything I said. Like I'd be coming from a really loving place, but in my head I'd hear this thought say, it's basically a reversal thought. And I had to work really hard at getting that out, because it was like encrypted so deep, you know, it was undermining everything I said. So basically, you know what I read that was really good is the Montague Keen, and he's got some papers you can download on how to remove scripts and thought programs, and also EFT, in the book Matrix Reimprinting by Carl Dawson and Sasha Allenby. That is really good at, you know, reprogramming yourself with happy thoughts or like loving thought patterns, because that's what it comes all down to, is how we speak to ourselves, you know, is going to totally reflect in everybody else. And if we're just talking sweetly to everyone and then treating ourselves like shit, that's going to create an imbalance. So that's why it's so important for us to, you know, do the work on ourselves and be forgiving, you know, when you do get crazy thoughts or like, you know, emotional or angry, but just learning outlets how to you know, diffuse that energy in a healthy manner.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. I am hoping that when this gets on YouTube, that you will go ahead and put, I see 3 things that you've really, really, that would be like superpower tools for people. The thing with breaking contracts, the thing that Montague Keen wrote, which I can't remember the topic, and then the reprogramming the matrix, basically.
Reprogramming the matrix reimprinting. Yeah, I can put that in the comments. I'll write like those links.
That would be super cool, because those are definitely important tools for freeing ourselves. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything I have to share about it. Obviously, the stories about recruitment and handlers, and did we actually get programmed, and is there is there a war? So here's the thing, is that I do feel that those kittens, you know, people like the Olsen twins, or
Yep.
that the young woman who was a Victoria's Secret model, but now she's deprogramming herself and she's kind of on the run. Karen Hudas, I think, or Karen H. She used to. She's got a YouTube channel called Sky Maitreya, Maitreya, and like most things, it's kind of mixed. You know, on some hand, she's really pretty stoked that the Illuminati wanted to turn her into an embodiment of the goddess that they could control. And so she allowed herself to become a Victoria's Secret model. And you see her now in her videos and you realize, oh yeah, she's just a 20-something with a black cap on, you know, and a hoodie. She's just a kid, but they turned her into that weird false goddess thing, painted a bunch of cleavage in, you know what I mean? Put her in the fuzzy high heels and just kittenized her. So what I really am hoping is that there will be like this massive insurrection of the mind control kittens. So I never ever write anyone off. I never go, oh, Britney Spears, she's so sold out. It's like, you know what? I hold hope for everyone that all they simply have to do is awake and allow themselves to be themselves and believe the truth and start speaking with a lot of courage the things that are true for them. And it's never an easy path. It is always going to be a warrior's path. And a lot of us are going to get, you know, put in mental hospitals before, you know, we get stronger. And that's just how it is. I mean, I'm so freaking jealous of people like Marianne Williamson, who could just like go through her growth pangs without pissing off everybody. You know, but at the same time, I'm so glad I'm not her, because to me, she doesn't have enough inner flow and inner movement. She's not authentic enough for me. I wouldn't want to
I like all the weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. We're a whole generation of people who can appreciate weirdos. Your weirdness is like your flag of authenticity. You can kind of tell who's for real and who's not by like how.
Who wants to have normal conversations anymore? That's boring. Let's get into the deep stuff and like have fun with it, you know?
Exactly.
How's the weather? Like, no, that's boring.
Which weather? Yeah.
Yeah, which one? The real weather or the diverted weather?
Exactly. Which level are we going to be talking on? I love it. Oh, such a fun place to be. I just really want all of you guys out there to believe in yourselves and know that if you're coming from a place of love, anything that's holding you back right now will be cleared. And that taking your power, i.e. believing in yourself, is the first and most important step that you can do for yourself in this life. So we talked a little, I mentioned something about gang stalking, or people who feel like they are being targeted individuals. And I want you to know my heart completely goes out to you. I've only had little tingles of that, like when I was thinking a particularly insurrectionist thought and my phone would ring and there would just be like nothing on the end, or like somebody clearing their throat, or, you know, stuff like that, like just some vague menacing. But I knew, and I wonder if you guys will resonate with this too, I knew that the only one who knew, I mean, yeah, I was posting some like, you know, burn the government stuff on my Facebook page, but it wasn't loaded enough on the outside for anyone to know that it's time to, you know, call Adrienne and like make her pipe down. But so I have to think that some of my own fear was like manifesting, or maybe they're like very tuned into just that one channel, that when I know that I'm leaving my pasture, when I know I'm going out of the gate, that's when they'll call. But fortunately I have not had the experience of being consistently, regularly, and terrifyingly gang stalked. But I had to look the prospect in the face. And each and every time I had to ask myself these questions, which if you're an individual experiencing this, I'm hoping that this will help. You have to ask yourself, okay, the people who are trying to intimidate me, are they good? If they're not good, do they have my true growth in mind? Are they just trying to protect me from being an ass? You know, take a look at that. But if it turns out that you really don't want them to win and they're not good, they're not valid, and they're pure evil, you have to ask yourself, okay, I've got this one life and I've got my eternal life. People get, how do I say this? People get shot all the time for things that didn't even have to do with their beliefs. Isn't it worth it? If you were going to be a targeted individual, I say fucking be one with all your might. And I know it's easier said than done. So when and if I become one, I'll check back in with you. But I know that your sense of purpose and your sense of who you truly are is way more important than what it is that they're, than them trying to keep you silent. So if you're a targeted individual and you feel like every day you can barely get through the day because you're being fucked with from every direction, I say, please go within, unplug the fear stuff, realize that you are right, you are correct, and you are love. And just be like, okay, if that's how I'm going down in this lifetime, let's make it good. And just fucking play full out. That would be, that's my plan, and has always been my plan. Every single time that they like showed me a fear reflection, I just went, let's keep going. I ended up running for public office with the Green Party and becoming somewhat public that way. And it was just because I was like, am I going to let fear hold me back, or am I going to just say, yep, we're in that battle? If you find yourself on the battlefield, then go, okay, I've got a battle. Let's do it. Hi, we can see you again. So you want to say something?
Yay!
Hi? People can.
So yeah, basically, oh, good. So yeah, basically, definitely the whole thing with the fear, that was the huge like lesson in the beginning. I faced all my fears. I faced all those things within me that were holding me back, and that's why I was able to break free. But it isn't easy, like you said, it's not easy because you are attacked. Like, you know, like you said, yeah, it's almost like a mirror around you. I did notice also when I was in the hospital that the unresolved issue I had with people in my past, suddenly all the people around me, like, it was almost like I was seeing different people and different people. Like my grandfather, there was the war veterans all in there. This guy looked just like my grandfather. Another guy looked just like my father, and they were like buddies in there. And the guy like that looked like my grandfather, like, we right behind my back all the time. He actually tried to push me in one of the laundry room at one time and like follow me in there, and like he was like right on my ass. And I was like, I had to deal with this shit.
So what
Another
did you
time I tried to go in, I turned around, I said, get the fuck away from me. Like, don't me. Yeah. You know, because it is, and then yeah, it's funny how that plays out though. It's like everything around you. One kid came at me, like, at one point I got so fed up being in the hospital and I needed fresh air that this kid was leaving. He whispered in my ear like the lion's about to roar or something like that. And then I kicked the door open and I sat on the lawn, and I felt like I got like a zap up my lower spine. And I guess from what I hear, I lit up like a Christmas tree because I was like in a meditation mudra with me on my knees. I guess they, you know, I lit up like a Christmas tree. And then the guys tried to grab me, and I was like, I didn't want anyone touching me. So I screamed so loud, like so loud at the, don't touch me, don't touch me. And like they didn't touch me. And I ran over to this woman that I kind of trusted there. And she had a blue shirt on. And all I could just remembering was like the blue rays, like you can trust the blue rays. And I said, please help me. Like, nobody's helping me here. Like, please just help me. And then I calmed down, and, you know, definitely like it's crazy, like in those littles, because it's not really doing, you know what I mean? Like they're there to help people, but I feel like they're actually controlling people. And, you know, they drug you against your will. They handcuffed me to the bed. like, because they thought I was gonna run out. The cameras in the showers. They told me I was spiritually unclean.
They
They at
actually
one
used
point when
that word. Oh, because it
yeah,
was a Catholic one.
yeah, he said, "Don't touch me. You're spiritually unclean." When I was sleeping, it felt like they were trying to pull my energy out of my body, and I was so strong, and I like resisted it, and then I went out basically like pissed. What the fuck are you guys doing? He had it on his hand, and he was opening it like this, and I said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, haven't you ever seen Pan's Labyrinth?" And I guess that's some occult movie, and I had never seen it, and I was just like, whatever. They made me like sleep out in the middle of the thing with only men working in the middle of the floor, like just weird shit. And then also, um, from what I learned about the pineal gland, it's like a flower, I guess, consciousness. And I just remember seeing through my third eye, of like a spiral going in and then plucking the flower. I don't know. That was just like a visual I got. It's like spiritual warfare they use, and the fact that the whole thing was shaped like a pentagon, and they had a ward in there that was all children. Like that made me really sad. My friend that was in the hospital, it seemed like the people in there were like messengers from like God or whatnot, but they were so helpful, and like they actually helped me so much, like the people in there, you know. So,
Yeah,
it was
I think
good.
it's I think it's almost like it's fortunately the forces of light and life were able to even go in there and bring messengers. Like that's how much we've already won.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, obviously their main intention was not to be fabulous, not to make you better, not to make you feel great about life. Their purpose was to um, devalue you to the point where you wouldn't believe in yourself anymore, and you would just be openly harvestable.
Right.
But no, you didn't go
And I
for it. And there's a whole bunch
no,
of us out here.
oh, I know. It's sad, what's happening. And that's why I'd love to open like a healing center where we could do powerful healings on people and let their true light shine, and, at least come up with some kind of exit strategy on how to cleanse your body of these programs and heal yourself in a manner that isn't being tied to a bed and like handcuffed and rubbed in your ass and all that. I don't believe in that medicine. It's just anyone. It's creating more trauma, post-traumatic, creating mistrust already. And it's sad, to see people. And there are good people that work there, but there is an agenda as well. You know, I in people that were, I guess, like there was a lot of FBI agents and stuff like that. Um, at one point I was cracking my neck and they're like, "Oh, be careful, you might break your neck." Like stuff like that. It's just like threats and awkward.
Yeah. Jerks. Yeah. Anyway, I think that the amount of how dark that discussion, and we probably will get dark again someday. It can get very dark and very fearful. And I just want to remind people that if you are in the middle of hell right now, please do everything you can to believe in yourself. And that'll be the first and most important step. Are you good to go? I guess we've been on for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So I think we're probably good to wrap it up.
All right,
Are
sounds
you?
good.
Thank you so much. Do you want to let people know how to get in touch with you if they want to send you a friend request or anything like that?
I can post that on the links definitely. I don't really have like anything set up too well, but yeah,
Sure.
I want to set that up and then I'll put that in the links for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so then you can show people how to find you on social media, any place that you like. And
Yes,
I know you don't
definitely.
really have a gig yet when it comes to like helping people break their conditioning, but people might appreciate someone to talk with, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd love to talk to some people who've had similar experiences because it's definitely, we've been put through so much and it's so nice to see that we can, put ourselves back together and be whole again and help each other.
Thank you so much for showing us that too. You're a really great model of somebody who's taken themselves back bit by bit.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
It's
guys.
so nice to talk to you. It's so nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Oh
I
yeah.
had
Can you tell us? Oh, how old are you, by the way? Oh, she's gone.
32 this month.
32?
Yes.
All right.
Can you
Okay. Very
believe it? It's crazy. I'm like,
yes.
oh my God. 1984, baby, in the house.
Love it. Oh my God. So awesome. Yeah, age gets so wonderfully absurd. But so yeah, I guess you're like part of Generation Y, or do you identify generationally with any of those movements?
I don't really know. I don't really understand any of those millenniums and all that crap. I mean, I just like to I definitely resonate with like the Rainbow Warriors, and I do a lot of healing with like the rays and the energy of the rainbow and the light frequency energy.
Love it.
Um
That's the
yeah,
best.
I don't like to like contain myself in any label, you know?
Yep, for sure. And because it's always growing, it's always changing, it's always expanding. Yay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think we've got
So
a little delay.
I know it's really annoying, but we did the best we could. We had fun. I hope everybody else is having fun with it too. And thank you. And don't be afraid to chime in the comments. See you guys later.